The sky over Earth was no longer blue. It was covered by shadows that moved like giants across the clouds. People in every city looked up in silence, watching enormous shapes drift through the atmosphere. The alien ships were so big they hid the sun. Their metal bodies gleamed like blades, and their engines hummed with a strange deep sound that made the ground shake. Every broadcast stopped at once. Every satellite went dark. A single voice replaced them all. "Humans," it said, calm and cold. "Your world now belongs to the Dratheon Dominion. Kneel, and you will live." The message repeated in every language. No one on Earth replied. The alien commander waited, confident that fear would do the work for him. But the planet stayed quiet. Hours passed. Then an entire day. The Dominion fleet hovered in orbit, expecting a white flag that never came. Deep beneath the North Atlantic Ocean, Admiral Reed stood inside the command center of Earth's defense system, Project Umbra. The room was silent except for the low hum of computers. His face was calm, but his eyes were fixed on the live feed of alien ships above the clouds. "So they came after all," he said quietly. Commander Harris, standing beside him, spoke in a low voice. "They think we're weak, sir. They think silence means fear." Reed gave a small nod. "Let's show them what silence really means." He turned to the main console. "Activate the veil." Across the solar system, hidden machines came to life. In the asteroid belt, huge black structures shimmered and vanished into the void. Around the moon, invisible satellites began to move. The human network that had slept for decades was now awake. It didn't make noise or light. It didn't broadcast a signal. It simply disappeared from every known sensor. Up in orbit, the Dominion commanders saw nothing. To them, Earth's systems were dead. The humans were quiet, unarmed, and ready to be conquered. On board the Dominion flagship, Valtharion, the alien general stood before a huge window staring at the blue planet. His tall, armored body reflected the light of distant stars. "Pathetic creatures," he said. "They sit in silence because they have accepted their place. They were quiet in the council, and now they will kneel in person." His second officer nodded eagerly. "Shall we begin the demonstration, General?" "Yes. Destroy their moon base. Let the smoke remind them who rules this galaxy." Moments later, beams of energy cut through the darkness of space. The surface of the moon lit up with explosions. Dust clouds rose miles high, drifting like gray ghosts across the cratered land. The Dominion fleet cheered as their sensors showed the base torn apart. But in the control room beneath the ocean, Admiral Reed watched the destruction calmly. "They took the bait," he murmured. Commander Harris looked confused. "Sir, that was our main base." "No," Reed said softly. "That was the shell we wanted them to see." On the moon, where the Dominion believed everything had been destroyed, a large hatch opened under the shattered ground. Out of it came a black triangle, smooth, sharp, and silent. Then another, and another. Dozens rose from beneath the surface, invisible to the naked eye. Each of those ships belonged to the Spectre fleet, humanity's greatest secret. Their engines made no heat. Their hulls bent light. To every alien sensor, they did not exist. Admiral Reed pressed a small control on his console. The fleet spread silently toward the alien armada. "No signals," he said. "No transmissions. They'll never know what hit them." Far above, the Dominion commander was busy giving orders. He didn't notice the small ripples appearing near his ships. He didn't see the black shapes moving like shadows between the stars. He only saw his screens flash for a second, then go dark. A massive explosion tore through one of the alien cruisers. No beam, no missile, no visible weapon, just sudden destruction. Another followed, then another. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. "Where are the attacks coming from?" the officers shouted. "Unknown." Their sensors replied again and again. Captain Lyra, aboard the lead Spectre ship, watched the chaos unfold. Her voice was calm. "Make them believe they're fighting ghosts," she said. Her crew moved without a word. Invisible gravity weapons locked on target. Alien ships folded in on themselves, crushed by forces they couldn't measure. The Dominion fleet fired wildly, hitting nothing but empty space. Lyra smiled faintly. "They see only what we let them see." Back on Earth, Admiral Reed watched the data scroll across his screen. Every destroyed Dominion ship blinked as a red dot faded from the map. "How long before they realize?" he asked. "Too late already," Harris said with a grin, but Reed's eyes were still hard. "Don't celebrate yet. The Dominion doesn't lose easily. They'll bring more." He was right. Within hours, reinforcements were already on their way from deep space. The Dominion considered this battle an insult. To them, humans were supposed to be small, quiet, harmless, the kind that sat in the back of council meetings and took notes while others decided the galaxy's fate. But humans had learned from those meetings. They had learned more than anyone realized. In the council's memory banks, there were countless moments of laughter when humans asked too many questions or spoke too little. They were the quiet students in a class full of proud teachers. Now the teachers were learning fear. The Dominion flagship trembled as another explosion rocked its lower decks. The general roared in rage. "These creatures have stolen technology. Find how they hide their ships." But even his best scientists couldn't explain it. The readings made no sense. "It's not stealth as we know it," one said in panic. "It's like they're bending the light around themselves, as if they're not even here." The general slammed his claws into the console. "Then we burn their planet until nothing is left." The alien fleet began to gather, preparing for a massive counterattack. Thousands of ships aligned into formation, moving toward Earth. The Spectre fleet followed them in silence, staying just out of sight. Admiral Reed knew they couldn't fight head-on yet. "Fall back to Mars orbit," he ordered. "Make them think we're running." Captain Lyra received the command and nodded. "Retreating," she said with a small smile. "Let's see if they can follow a ghost." The Spectre ships disappeared again, slipping between the stars like dark wind. The Dominion fleet followed, confident they had the humans cornered. From his command room, Reed stared at the map of the solar system. Red markers filled the display as more Dominion reinforcements arrived. "They think they're chasing us," he said quietly. Commander Harris looked at him curiously. "Aren't they?" Reed's lips curved into a thin smile. "No, we're leading them." He turned to the tactical display of Mars. Beneath the planet's surface, deep in the red soil, lay something no alien knew existed. Another secret that had waited for this exact moment. "Prepare Mars for activation," Reed ordered. "Let them come closer." As the Dominion fleet moved toward the red planet, their sensors showed nothing but open space ahead. They believed victory was near. They believed humans were finally out of tricks. They were wrong. From the dark side of Mars, a faint red glow began to spread. On the Dominion flagship, the general frowned. "What is that?" No one could answer. The glow grew stronger until the entire surface of the planet seemed alive. The red dust began to move, swirling in patterns too perfect to be natural. And then, before the Dominion could react, the dust ignited. Admiral Reed watched from the ocean base as the signal reached Mars. "They wanted to see power," he said softly. "Show them." The red planet flared like a rising sun. In its orbit, the alien ships began to vanish one by one, their hulls breaking apart as something invisible consumed them. In the silence of space, Captain Lyra whispered through her comm, "This is only the beginning." And as the last Dominion cruiser fell into the red mist of Mars, humanity's quiet war entered its next phase. The red planet glowed like a dying ember. The Dominion fleet that had chased the humans to Mars was now nothing but drifting metal. Half of their ships had vanished inside the red storm. Those that survived floated helplessly, their systems dead, their engines silent. The clouds of red dust swirled around them like a living thing. From her ship hidden in the blackness above the planet, Captain Lyra watched the destruction with calm eyes. "Keep the cloak active," she said softly. Her crew moved quickly, checking every silent control. No sound came from their ship, not even a hum. "Wait for Admiral Reed's signal." Far away, deep under Earth's oceans, Admiral Reed stood in front of a glowing map of the solar system. His voice was quiet but firm. Phase 1 was a success. The Dominion lost half their strength at Mars, but they'll send more. "They always send more?" Commander Harris frowned. "Sir, do we keep attacking?" Reed shook his head. "Not yet. We make them believe we're running again. Let them think we're scared." Above Mars, the survivors of the Dominion fleet gathered together. Their flagship was damaged, its hull cracked and burning. Inside, the alien general roared with anger. "Cowards! They hide behind tricks and shadows! Find them!" His crew worked fast, but their scanners found nothing. No ships, no heat signatures, no life forms. The humans had vanished again. "Impossible," the general growled. "No species can fight like this. They were supposed to be weak." One of his scientists trembled. "General, their weapons don't use normal energy. It's like the laws of physics bend around them." The general's eyes burned with rage. "Then bend them back. If they can hide, we can burn everything until there's nothing left to hide in." On the dark side of Mars, the red glow slowly faded. Beneath the surface, machines the size of mountains shut down, their work complete. They had been built long ago, buried and forgotten by the galaxy, until the humans found them. Admiral Reed had learned their secrets and built something new, something that made even the mightiest fleet helpless. Humanity's silence had never been fear. It had been patience. Captain Lyra's voice came through the secure link. "Mars defense is complete, sir. The Dominion is regrouping. They're calling in reinforcements from their home world." Reed nodded. "Then we move to Phase 2. Fall back to the asteroid field." The Spectre fleet turned silently, their engines dark. They glided through the blackness of space like ghosts. The Dominion scanners could not follow them. To the aliens, the humans had vanished completely. But the truth was different. The humans were watching everything. On Earth, hidden in old communication centers and mountain bunkers, thousands of operators monitored the battle. Every radio signal, every transmission, every movement in space, they saw it all. A young technician looked up from his screen. "Sir, the Dominion just sent a distress call to the Galactic Council." Commander Harris raised an eyebrow. "They're asking for help?" "Yes, sir. They say humans are using forbidden technology." Reed smiled faintly. "Let them. The Council will come to watch, and when they watch, they'll learn too." At that same moment, far away in the shining halls of the Galactic Council, panic spread. The council chambers were filled with voices from hundreds of species. Each representative shouted over the other, "They've destroyed a Dominion fleet." With what weapons? They were supposed to be a quiet species. A tall, silver-skinned delegate slammed a hand on the table. "This is exactly why humans were not trusted. They sit in the back of our meetings, silent, pretending to be harmless. Now they reveal their claws." Another voice spoke, an older, slower tone. "Perhaps they were never pretending. Perhaps they were learning." The room fell silent for a moment. None of the great empires liked that thought. None wanted to admit that the humans had outsmarted them all. Back at Mars, the Dominion flagship limped toward open space. Inside, the general was seething. "Send a message to our home world. I want every ship available. If Earth will not kneel, we will crush it into dust." The alien fleet began to gather again, millions of soldiers preparing for the largest attack ever seen. Captain Lyra's ships were already waiting in the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter. The ships hovered between rocks the size of cities. They powered down their systems and disappeared into the darkness. Lyra looked at the distant stars and whispered, "They think they're hunting us." Her second officer smiled slightly. "But we're leading them right where we want them." "Exactly," she said. Admiral Reed's voice came over the secure link. "Remember, no contact until they reach the perimeter. The asteroid field is our shield. Let them come. Hours passed. The Dominion fleet entered the field. Their giant ships pushed through the rocks, scanning every corner. Still, they saw nothing. Then, suddenly, one of their ships exploded. The blast was so fast that no one even saw what caused it. Then another ship vanished. Panic spread again through the Dominion ranks. "Sensors detect gravitational distortions!" shouted one of their officers. The general growled. "Weapons ready. Fire on anything that moves." Thousands of beams cut through the asteroids, smashing rocks into dust. But they still hit nothing. The humans moved silently between them, unseen. On one Spectre ship, Lyra gave a short command. "Fire 2 rounds, then shift position." Her ship fired invisible pulses. The Dominion battleship in front of them split in half, both sections spinning away into space. The human ship moved before anyone could detect it. "This isn't a battle," Lyra said softly. "It's a message." The Dominion fleet lost dozens of ships before they realized they had to retreat again. But they didn't go back. They changed course, straight toward Earth. When Reed received the report, he knew what would come next. "So it begins," he said. "They'll throw everything they have at us." Commander Harris looked uneasy. "Can we stop them, sir?" Reed didn't answer at first. He walked to the large screen that showed Earth calm and beautiful, floating in space. "If they reach us, they'll learn the final reason why humans sit in the back." The next day, messages spread across the galaxy. The Council announced an emergency meeting. Representatives argued again about humanity. Some called for peace talks, others called for destruction, but by then it was too late. The Dominion fleet had already crossed into Earth's orbit, the night sky filled with light. People all over the world could see lines of fire moving above the atmosphere. But there was no panic this time. The world was quiet, calm, waiting. In the command center under the ocean, Admiral Reed stood before his crew. "This is it," he said. "They want to show us our place. Let's remind them who gave them theirs." Every system came online. The hidden satellites above Earth turned toward the enemy fleet. The Spectre ships moved into position behind the moon, invisible to sight and radar. The Dominion general sent his final message to Earth. "You could have joined us. You could have lived under our rule. Instead, you chose war. When we are done, there will be no more humans." Admiral Reed watched the message play. His face didn't change. "They still don't understand," he said quietly. "We didn't choose war. We chose survival." The general ordered his ships to fire. Thousands of energy beams shot toward Earth. They never hit. Every beam curved away as if space itself refused to obey. Reed smiled faintly. "The ether core is ready." Commander Harris stared at the glowing readings. "Sir, what does it do?" Reed looked at the display where the Dominion ships filled the screen. "It changes the rules." Above Earth, the stars began to twist. The Dominion fleet fired again, but their weapons vanished in midair. Then one of their ships simply disappeared, sucked into nothing. The aliens didn't understand it, but humanity did. It was only the beginning of what Earth had built in secret. As the light of burning ships lit up the night sky, people on Earth looked up quietly, not with fear, but with understanding. The silence that had once made the galaxy laugh was about to teach them all a lesson they would never forget. The sky above Earth was filled with fire. The Dominion fleet had surrounded the planet like a steel storm, their ships stretching across the stars. The night had turned red and gold from the light of explosions. But none of those explosions came from Earth. They came from the alien ships themselves, breaking apart one by one as if the universe had turned against them. Deep beneath the ocean, Admiral Reed stood in the command room of Project Umbra. His voice was calm, but the air around him was tense. "Status of the ether core?" he asked. A young officer replied quickly. "Stable, sir. Energy flow at 95%. The distortion field is expanding." Reed nodded. "Good. Keep it that way. We don't want to destroy them all. Just remind them who they're dealing with." Commander Harris looked at the main screen, where the alien ships floated helplessly. "Sir, the Council's watching this. They've opened a live channel. Everyone in the galaxy is seeing what we're doing." Reed gave a small smile. "Good. They've been asking why humans always sit in the back. It's time they learn. Above Earth, the Dominion flagship shook violently. The general shouted at his crew, his voice filled with rage. "Why can't we hit them? What is happening to space?" His science officer stared at the readings in disbelief. "It's the humans, sir. They're changing gravity, bending light, twisting our targeting systems. We're firing into nothing." The general slammed his claws into the floor. "That's impossible. No one can control space itself." But then, on the screen in front of him, Earth began to shimmer with a faint blue light. A wave of energy rolled outward, slow at first, then faster. The Dominion ships closest to the planet were caught in it. Their engines shut down, their power vanished, and their metal hulls began to melt as if touched by a star. On Earth, Reed's voice stayed calm. "Phase 2 complete. The field is stable." Commander Harris looked at him with unease. "Sir, the ether core wasn't meant to run this long. If we keep it going, it might damage the planet." Reed's expression darkened. "I know, but if we shut it down now, they'll come back. We have to finish this." The sound of quiet alarms filled the room. Screens flashed warnings and engineers shouted updates, but Reed didn't flinch. He walked slowly to the main console and placed his hand on the surface. "We built this because we knew one day they'd come. Now that day is here." Meanwhile, in orbit, the Spectre fleet moved silently through the chaos. Captain Lyra's ship glided through the burning remains of alien cruisers. Her eyes followed the Dominion flagship as it tried to retreat. "They're running," she said quietly. Her second officer nodded. "Do we pursue?" Lyra's voice was steady. "No, not yet. Let them call for help. Let the Council see what happens when the Dominion meets a human defense line." Her ship disappeared into the darkness, leaving no trace. At the same moment, far away in the shining halls of the Galactic Council, panic and confusion filled the chamber. Thousands of species watched the live transmission of the battle. Some shouted in anger, others in fear. "This is madness!" cried one council member. "The humans have created a weapon that breaks natural law." Another voice shouted back, "And they're using it only because the Dominion attacked first. Would you have done differently?" An older delegate from a peaceful race leaned forward. "They were always quiet, always listening. Maybe we should have listened to them too." The council grew silent for a moment. In that silence, they all realized that humanity's silence had never been weakness. It had been patience. Back on the Dominion flagship, the general stood surrounded by smoke and sparks. His bridge was collapsing, his crew shouting over the alarms. "All weapons offline!" One officer screamed. "Engines unresponsive!" The general bared his teeth. "Then we fight to the end!" He turned toward the screen showing Earth, glowing faintly beneath the distortion field. "You think you can hide behind tricks?" he roared. "We will return with the full power of the Dominion." But before he could finish, the image on his screen changed. A human face appeared. Admiral Reed. His eyes were calm, his expression cold. "You won't return," Reed said simply. "Not this time." The general stepped closer. "Do you think your small world can stand against us?" "Against billions?" Reed's voice remained even. "No, but we don't have to stand against you. You'll destroy yourselves trying." The transmission ended. Moments later, a final wave of blue light erupted from Earth. The Dominion flagship vanished in an instant, its massive body folding into a point of light before fading completely. The silence that followed was endless. In the command room under the ocean, no one spoke for a long time. Then Commander Harris whispered, "Is it over?" Reed looked at the screen, now clear of red dots. "For now," he said. "But they'll be back. And next time they won't come alone." Harris looked worried. "The Council?" "Yes," Reed said quietly. "The Council will fear us now. They'll call us dangerous. But they won't understand. We didn't want war. We wanted peace. We just wanted to be left alone." Outside, the oceans were calm. People around the world watched the night sky, now free of the glowing trails of battle. For the first time in weeks, there was peace. But it felt strange, fragile, like it could break at any second. In the dark halls of the Council, the members gathered again. The Dominion had sent no signal, no survivors. Their empire was silent. The Council leader, an ancient being with silver eyes, spoke slowly. "We have underestimated them," he said. "Humans were never harmless." "They were waiting," another delegate asked softly. What do we do now? The leader looked down at the report glowing before him. We watch, and we pray they never turn their eyes toward us. Back on Earth, Admiral Reed sat alone in his private quarters. The room was dark except for the soft light from the ocean above. He watched the silent footage of the battle replaying on his screen. Ship after ship breaking apart, the blue light spreading like a storm. He felt no pride, only a quiet sadness. We didn't want this, he said to himself. But they gave us no choice. There was a soft knock on the door. Captain Lyra entered, her uniform scorched from battle. Sir, all ships have returned safely. Losses are minimal, Reed nodded. Good. Prepare the fleet for standby. She hesitated for a moment. Sir, the crew... They want to know what happens next. Are we going to strike back? Reed looked out at the dark water above him. No, we'll wait. Let the council make the next move. Lyra frowned. And if they decide we're a threat? He turned to her, his face calm but tired. Then we remind them that humans never start wars. We end them. Lyra stood silently for a moment, then gave a short nod and left the room. Reed sat back, closing his eyes. In his mind, he could still see the stars burning, the fleets dying, and the long silence that followed. He thought about the long years humanity had spent being ignored and dismissed by the galaxy. He thought about the times they had been laughed at for sitting quietly in the back of the council chambers. Now, no one would laugh again. High above the planet, the Spectre fleet drifted quietly among the stars, invisible and patient. The ether core's light faded slowly as Earth returned to normal. But beneath the calm surface, every system remained ready. Humanity was not celebrating. They were waiting. And somewhere deep in space, new signals began to appear. The Dominion had other fleets. The Council was sending scouts. The war was far from over, but for now, Earth rested. Its people looked up at the stars, knowing the truth that the galaxy had finally begun to learn. Silence was not weakness. It was warning. Admiral Reed stood by the window, watching the faint glow of the ether core fade beneath the clouds. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. They wanted to know why we sit in the back, he said. Because from the back, you see everything. And with that, he turned off the screen, leaving the room in darkness as the ocean waves rolled above him. In the deep quiet of space, the galaxy held its breath. The great Dominion armada was gone, wiped out around Earth like dust in a storm. No one had ever seen power like that before. Entire planets watched the recordings in silence, trying to understand how a single world had done what no empire could. The humans, the quiet ones, the ones who always sat at the back of the council chambers, had turned out to be something far greater than anyone believed. In the shining hall of the Galactic Council, confusion and fear filled the air. Hundreds of delegates shouted over each other, their voices echoing through the grand chamber. They have a weapon that can destroy fleets. One cried. This changes everything. Another slammed a hand on the glowing table. We warned you. The humans have been planning this all along. They were waiting for their chance to rise. A third delegate spoke, calmer but just as worried. Or maybe they were preparing for this war because they knew one day the Dominion would come for them. Perhaps they did what any of us would have done. The council leader, an ancient being with silver eyes and a deep voice, stood up slowly. Enough, he said. The room fell quiet. We will send an envoy to Earth. We must understand what happened before the galaxy tears itself apart. Meanwhile, far from the council's shining worlds, Earth floated quietly under its blue sky. The people had begun to rebuild. The oceans were calm again, and the night skies no longer burned with enemy fire. But the peace felt heavy, like a silence that could end at any second. Deep beneath the sea, Admiral Reed sat in the command center of Project Umbra. The holographic map showed the entire solar system, calm and clear for the first time in months. Commander Harris stood beside him, arms crossed. The Dominion is gone, he said quietly. But they'll come back. You know they will. Reed nodded slowly. Yes, but not yet. Right now they're scared, and fear can be useful. A signal beeped on one of the consoles. The communication officer turned. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the council. They're requesting direct contact. Reed leaned back in his chair. So they finally want to talk. The officer hesitated. They're sending a single ship. An envoy, Reed gave a small smile. Then let's welcome them properly. Hours later, the Council envoy arrived in Earth's orbit. It was a sleek silver craft carrying only a few diplomats and guards. They expected to find humans eager to talk, maybe even to boast about their victory. But when they tried to scan the planet, all their instruments failed. Earth was silent. No signals, no broadcasts, nothing. Inside the ship, the lead envoy frowned. They're blocking us. They don't want us to see, one of the guards asked nervously. Should we send a probe? Before the envoy could answer, a calm human voice came through the ship's speakers. This is Admiral Reed of Earth. State your purpose. The envoy straightened. We come on behalf of the Galactic Council. We wish to discuss the incident with the Dominion fleet. The galaxy is concerned. Reed's voice stayed calm. Concerned or afraid? The envoy hesitated. Both. There was a short pause. You may land, Reed said. But only you. No weapons. No devices. When the envoy arrived on Earth, they were taken deep underground to the command center. The air was cold, the lights dim. Screens flickered with quiet streams of data. Reed stood waiting at the far end of the room, hands behind his back. You have questions, he said. The envoy looked around, uneasy. The Council wants to understand what you've done. The power you used, the ether core, defies our science. You could have destroyed not just the Dominion, but the entire system. Reed nodded slowly. Yes, we could have, but we didn't. Why build such a thing at all? Reed looked at him carefully. Because you all told us to trust the Council. Because you said peace was guaranteed. And yet, when the Dominion started conquering systems, no one came to stop them. We waited and we watched. And we learned that peace only lasts until someone stronger decides they want what you have. The envoy frowned. You think you're stronger now? Reed's eyes were cold. We don't think it, we know it. But strength isn't what we wanted. We only wanted to be left alone. The envoy studied him for a moment. Then why keep sitting in the back of the Council? Reed smiled faintly. Because it's the best place to listen. And to plan. At that moment, an alarm flashed across the room. A young officer shouted, Incoming warp signatures! Multiple fleets! Reed turned sharply. Origin? Unknown, sir. But readings match Dominion tech. The envoy looked startled. That's impossible. The Dominion fleet was destroyed. Reed's voice hardened. Then someone rebuilt it. The main screen filled with red dots as hundreds of ships appeared on the outer edge of the solar system. They were bigger, faster, and more advanced than before. The Dominion had learned too. Reed gave a sharp order. Activate the veil. All defense platforms online. The ocean trembled as hidden towers rose from beneath the waves. In orbit, the Spectre fleet reappeared, their dark shapes gliding into position like shadows come alive. Commander Harris turned to the envoy. You might want to leave now. Things are about to get loud. The envoy shook his head. No, the Council needs to see this. He activated a small camera on his wrist. Reed noticed but said nothing. He wanted the galaxy to watch. The Dominion fleet began firing before they even reached orbit. Beams of energy lit up the darkness, crashing against invisible shields. But nothing hit Earth. The ether core hummed again, bending the attacks away like ripples in water. Reed gave a calm command. Spectre fleet, engage. The black ships moved at once, vanishing into the darkness. Moments later, Dominion cruisers began exploding, one after another. Captain Lyra's voice came over the link. They're using new armor. But it's not enough. Keep pressure on them, Reed said. Don't let them think we're defending. Make them think we're hunting. The envoy watched in shock as the battle unfolded. You're not fighting them head-on. You're controlling the field itself. Reed nodded. That's what you learn when you sit quietly for a few centuries. How to control the game while others argue about the rules. Within minutes, the Dominion formation broke apart. Their ships tried to retreat, but the ether core warped space itself, trapping them. The envoy could barely breathe as he watched the alien ships twist and vanish into nothing. Then something unexpected happened. A massive pulse came from the Dominion flagship, striking through the distortion field. For the first time, an explosion shook the command center. Reed grabbed the console. Report. Unknown weapon, sir. It's tearing through the field! Reed's eyes narrowed. They've adapted. Good. He leaned closer to the comm. Captain Lyra, focus on their flagship. Disabled, don't destroy. I want the Council to see who's leading them. Lyra's ship vanished again into the darkness. Minutes later, the Dominion flagship's shields failed. The human fleet surrounded it like wolves around a dying beast. Reed looked at the envoy. Watch closely. A bright beam of blue light shot from the Spectre flagship, cutting into the enemy ship's hull. The screen showed the Dominion commander, a scarred alien general half-mad with fury. You can destroy us, human, he hissed, but you'll never rule the galaxy. Reed's voice came through cold. We don't want to rule it. We just wanted to stop sending monsters to our door. The general's face twisted in rage. You'll never stop us all. There are others greater than us who already fear you. The transmission cut off as the flagship exploded. The stars went quiet again. The envoy stood in stunned silence. You didn't just win. You sent a message. Reed looked back at him. No, we sent a warning. The envoy's camera still streamed to the council. All across the galaxy, leaders and soldiers watched in awe and fear. When the envoy finally returned to the council, the chamber was silent. No one shouted this time. No one mocked. Reed's final words echoed across the broadcast. We sit in the back because that's where you see the truth. We listen, we learn, and when the time comes, we act. And somewhere far beyond the stars, another fleet began to move. Larger, older, more dangerous than the Dominion. The galaxy was no longer laughing at humanity. It was watching, waiting, and wondering what would happen next. The stars over Earth burned quietly as the night passed, but deep beyond the known systems, something vast was stirring. The Dominion was gone, erased in fire and silence, but their destruction had not gone unnoticed. Across the galaxy, ancient powers that had slept for millennia had begun to open their eyes. The message of Earth's power had spread too far, too fast, and now the real test for humanity was about to begin. In the underground command center, Admiral Reed stood over the main screen as endless streams of data poured in. The solar system was peaceful, but sensors were picking up strange energy signatures from deep space. Commander Harris leaned over his shoulder, his expression tight. It's not the Dominion this time, he said. These readings are different, stronger. Reed's face stayed calm, but his voice was low. Stronger than the Dominion? Much stronger. And they're coming this way. The room fell silent. Every officer knew what that meant. The next wave was not an attack for conquest. It was judgment. The galaxy's mightiest species were gathering, not to talk or negotiate, but to test humanity's claim to power. Far above Earth, the Spectre fleet floated quietly in orbit, dark against the stars. Its ships had been rebuilt, repaired, and upgraded after the Dominion War. Every hull shimmered with faint silver light, a result of the new ether shielding. They no longer looked like shadows. They looked like ghosts of stars. In the fleet's flagship, Captain Lyra walked through the bridge, checking each system. All units ready, she said. If they come, we'll be waiting. But Reed wasn't sure waiting would be enough. He turned toward the holographic table, showing a faint image of the Council's chamber. The envoy who had visited Earth appeared again, this time looking worn and pale. They've come, he said. The Ardent Corps, the oldest empire still alive. They saw what you did to the Dominion. They think you've become a danger to the galaxy. Reed's eyes narrowed. And what does the Council think? The envoy hesitated. They're divided. Some want to stand with you. Others want to hand Earth over before the Ardent Corps destroys us all. Reed gave a slow, humorless smile. Typical. Harris looked up from his console. How many ships? Thousands, the envoy whispered. Their armada fills whole sectors. They've destroyed every system that tried to resist them. Reed turned toward the main display. Then we'll give them something new to fear. Across the solar system, silent satellites began to wake. Buried stations on the moon powered up. Neptune's orbit glowed faintly as hidden defense rings unfolded. Humanity had prepared for this, even before they won against the Dominion. Reed had known peace wouldn't last. It never did. 3 days later, the Ardent Corps arrived. Their fleet was massive, stretching across the darkness like a moving storm. Each ship glowed with crimson energy, and their command vessel was the size of a small moon. Every sensor on Earth trembled under the power they carried. From orbit, Captain Lyra watched as the first wave appeared on the edge of the system. "So it begins," she said quietly. Reed's voice came through the comm. "No first strike. Let them speak." Moments later, a deep, ancient voice filled every human channel. It wasn't just sound, it was pressure. A vibration that shook every ship and station. "This is the Ardent Core. We have seen your destruction. We have seen your arrogance. You are an infection that threatens balance. Kneel, and you may live." Reed stood silently for a moment, then said, "Transmit on all frequencies." He faced the camera. "This is Admiral Reed of Earth. We do not kneel. Not to gods, not to empires, and not to fear." There was silence for a long second. Then the stars lit up. The first strike from the Ardent Core hit Mars's orbit like a sun exploding. The human defenses there evaporated in seconds. Reed's command center trembled as the shockwave reached the inner system. "Shields holding," Harris reported. "But if they hit again, they won't," Reed interrupted. "It's time." He pressed a control, and deep beneath Earth's crust, the ether core awakened again. This time it wasn't just defense. The energy began to spread across the planet, linking with hidden generators in orbit and on the moon. A web of light surrounded Earth, forming a glowing blue shield that pulsed like a living thing. From the flagship, Captain Lyra stared in awe. "He's doing it. He's using the core to control the system itself." In the Ardent Fleet, alarms blared. Their commanders shouted as gravitational waves rippled through their ships. Space around Earth was bending. Every weapon they fired missed, curving away into the void. Reed's voice echoed calmly through the network. "Let them come closer." As the Ardent ships advanced, their formation broke apart. Time and distance twisted against them. Their targeting systems failed. To them, Earth was everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, one by one, the Spectre ships appeared. Not in formation, but scattered like shadows flickering in light. They moved through warped space as if it were air, striking from impossible angles. Captain Lyra's voice rang out. "Spectre fleet, fire at will." The first human volleys shattered through Ardent armor, piercing ships that had survived for centuries. Explosions lit the dark like blue suns. But even as they fell, more came. The Ardent Core's ships were ancient and countless. On Earth, the ground trembled. The ether core burned bright, drawing power from the planet's very core. Reed felt the strain. His people were holding the line, but barely. "We can't keep this up forever," Harris warned. Reed nodded. "We won't have to." He turned to a hidden console and opened a file labeled Protocol Echo. The screen flashed with a warning. "Activating this sequence may destabilize the system." Reed pressed his hand to the panel. "Then let's hope they don't call our bluff." All across the system, hidden satellites and deep core transmitters came alive. They sent one unified pulse across space, a single message meant for the entire galaxy. It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. The message said, "We are not conquerors. We are survivors. We asked for peace. You brought war. If you come again, know that Earth does not fall alone." Moments later, massive energy spikes appeared across the stars. Old colonies, long silent, activated ancient defense arrays. Human outposts in distant systems revealed their strength. They had been spreading quietly, not to rule, but to endure. The Ardent Core realized too late that Earth was not one planet. It was the heart of a network spanning thousands of hidden worlds. Reed watched the sensors light up, a faint smile on his face. "Now they see why we sat in the back." The Ardent Fleet faltered. Their lines broke as human reinforcements emerged from the shadows of space. The battle turned in an instant. For hours, light filled the void. When the last Ardent ship fell silent, the galaxy itself seemed to exhale. The war was over. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council met again. But this time, the chamber was silent. The human envoy walked slowly to the front and placed a small emblem on the table. "Earth will remain in the Council," he said, "but not as a servant. As an equal." No one argued. No one dared. Admiral Reed stood on the balcony of the command center watching the sunrise. The sky was clear now. No ships, no fire, just light. Commander Harris walked up beside him. "We did it," he said softly. Reed nodded. For now, but peace never lasts. It's only borrowed time. Harris frowned. So what do we do? Reed looked out at the horizon. We do what humans always do. We prepare, we learn, and when the next storm comes, he smiled faintly, we'll be waiting in the back. Far beyond the stars, in the cold emptiness of deep space, something ancient watched through a field of static and light. The ardent core was gone, but the message of Earth had reached even older beings, those who had once shaped galaxies. They watched the little blue planet, and for the first time in millions of years they hesitated, because now, even the mightiest species in the galaxy had learned a simple truth. Humans sat in the back not because they were weak, but because they were patient. And when they finally stood, the galaxy itself trembled.